who is Gog? Now, we'll actually even read from Revelation 20 because the name Gog shows up again at the end of the book. But what we know just from the grammar is Gog is not a place and Gog is not a nation. Gog is a person. And so just from reading our text, he's referred to as a he. He is a leader, the prince of this area. And so for the most part, that's all we know. And that's all we really need to know. But I will say this, is as we look into this, he is the prince of Rosh, Meshach, and Tubal. Remember back in Daniel, when we hear about the prince of Persia, the prince of Greece, that's the same word used when they were talking actually about angels and demons and people overseeing nations and making things happen. So Gog may not even be a physical person. That's kind of the idea behind this, is that we just know it's a person, some person or being referred to in the first you and he and etc. So now Magog, there is something a little different. Now Magog is the land of Gog. So it's kind of like this is Gog's territory. This is Gog's area that he controls. And this is something we can go back in time and do a little bit of research about. So again, one of the oldest references we have, he was more of a poet, but he wrote about contemporary things. So Hesiod is a writer, 750 to 650 BC. What this means is that this is actually older than Ezekiel. But he says Magog was a son of Japheth, and he is said to have been bound to the Caucasus because he settled by it. So now we're talking about the Caucasus Mountains. I'll put our map back up in a second. But we have this area in between the Caspian and Black Seas. Josephus says, Magog founded those that from him were named Magogites, but who are by the Greeks called Scythians. Now, we actually have the Scythians mentioned in Colossians 3. So these guys were around for quite a while. Here's where Paul says, right, neither Greek nor Jew, circumcised nor uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave nor free. What's the deal? Notice all these things come in pairs, and they're related. There's the Greeks, and then there's the Jews. Essentially, Gentile and Jew, two categories. There's the circumcised and the uncircumcised, two categories. Now, when you're speaking of the barbarians, you're talking about the people north of Rome. All the Germanic tribes, they were the barbarians. And so it's all these people in the far north above Europe. The Scythians were those of the far north above the Middle East. And so he's naming this one group from the far north up here and another group from the far north up there. So when we look at our map that we had, you'll notice again the Scythians are right there to the north side, the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. You'll notice that the people who made this map 175 years ago put Rosh up there. And you'll also see Tubal, Meshach, and it also says Gog, Magog down there. And right between the two seas, you see the Caucasus Mountains. That's where we get our word Caucasian from. It's actually the lighter-skinned people who came out of the Caucasus Mountains and settled elsewhere. And so in short, Magog is the Scythians. I could talk a lot about them, but what you should know about them is they covered all the way and touched China at one point. They came all the way down to Turkey at one point. They were a pretty big nomadic group, and they were also, it wasn't just one race. It was a group of races that all kind of came together as being the Scythians, and the main thing they were known for was being horse riders, that they had lots and lots of horses, and that's why they could travel up into these areas in Russia that is just not great grazing land, but they could travel from A to B quickly because everyone had a horse. So they could move their whole camp and relocate to other areas. So that's what they were known for.